Shout out to our affiliates, VeVe Digital Collectibles. Join the future of collecting with VeVe, where the world collects. Whether you're a die-hard fan, a passionate collector, or new to the world of collecting, VeVe is your gateway to premium, officially licensed digital collectibles, comics, and artworks from some of the biggest brands on the planet, such as Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, DC, and many more. Check out the affiliate link in the description box below, or use the QR code that you see on the screen for $10 off your first purchase.
Hey, what's up? We are back again. My name is Emojii, and I am here with
Magic.
And we are bringing you another journey from Toon. Oh, I'm sorry. This is. I'm slipping up again. Slipping up. We are bringing you another journey
from Toontown
to Tokyo. And if I'm a little off, this might be a deep one. And I want to give a full disclosure to those watching. First off, we appreciate your support. We really, really do. It means a lot to us. If anything that we talk about during this show is triggering, or you feel that it's a little too much and you need to take a break, I get it 100%. We appreciate your support. But we do want to touch on a very serious topic that is covered in this movie. And the movie that we're reviewing today is A Silent Voice. Won awards up and down, but the message is a very powerful one. So we're going to be using in the context, just for YouTube not to kind of like suppress the video, we'll be using terminology such as maybe self-harm or self-deletion, and not to shy away from the actual words, but simply because we obviously understand, the importance and but we want to make sure that the message kind of reaches as many people as it can. So Magic, right? This was another anime film, and it was one that I wanted you to see because it touched on different tones that, this genre can, embrace, or stories that this medium can tell. And kicking things off, one of the first things that I would say was kind of like interesting. And I didn't mention this to you before, but you had started watching it with your kids. Oh
my gosh.
And I probably forgot to tell you, this one might not. And here's an example of how kind of like certain things in the East and in the West can kind of like differentiate. Because I think in the West, when we think of things that are mature, or when we think of things that are for adults, we typically think of like violence or like nudity or things, or sexuality and stuff like that. Those are the things that, and in the East it's a little different, because you can have shows that, may be violent or maybe things like that, but it may not be, it may still be curtailed for a young demographic. This movie has none of that. Not really. Like, there's really no violence in it, or there is no, nudity or anything like that. But the subject matter is very mature. Before going into it, I wanted to ask you, because this is probably one of the movies that we've seen from the anime realm that covers such a mature topic. How was this experience for you?
Emotional.
Okay.
I think for most people, there are a film that anybody can relate to, or has experienced, or different thought patterns. Or for me, there was also a bit of looking back And you have certain memories that you carry through life with you, where you hold regret, or you're very hard on yourself about, and you wish you'd handled differently, and they stay with you. And that's something that this movie sort of helped me realize more. Is like there were certain thoughts that triggered in my head of different experiences and things that I've had and gone through that made me reflect on more. That maybe I didn't place them in such a way prior to watching this movie. And now I kind of do. Because this movie was all about sort of reflection of the past and the way you've handled things and how it follows you and it catches up to you. And you have to learn to heal from it and deal with it and, you know, move on. And you can't let it be a burden in your life forever because it will only bring you down. So yeah, that was probably something I related to the most with this. Okay. Yeah. And, you know, for those that, you know, may not have seen the movie, this movie, it touches a lot on bullying. It touches a lot on depression, words that I mentioned before, self-harm, self-deletion. And it's interesting that the title of the movie is A Silent Voice, right? And another variation of the title is the shape of a voice, or the shape of voice, or the shape of sound, or something to that effect. And both of those titles kind of mean something different to me, right? A Silent Voice, one of the main characters, you know, she suffers bullying, and it makes me think of the phrase that we hear for those suffering in silence, right? But in this case, she was deaf. So literally everything in her life was silent, right? And we'll touch on as far as her psyche and dealing with that, but also the shape of a voice, right? That kind of begs to me that, you know, what we say, what we do with what we said, it has physical form, right? It takes a physical form, and it affects people in physical ways. And so just off the back, the titles for the song is kind of like, to me, very powerful. But going into the movie, it starts things off where you see the main character, and he's walking along a bridge, and, you know, you could tell as far as just with the way that it's filmed, what he's planning to do, right? You know, he's planning to end his life. And right then it goes to a flashback of him as a kid, right? So you already kind of like are feeling sorry for this person, but then it goes into a flashback as far as, well, how he got there. And that for me was one of the kind of like hard things to watch, is because you see him, and this new girl comes into the class, she's deaf, and, you know, she's trying to connect with the children or the other kids and stuff like that. And this is like grade school level, and she's bullied left and right. And he, you know, the guy, he's like one of the main culprits. You know, he's spraying water on her, throwing her, you know, books in the fountains and stuff like that, because she's using her books to try and communicate with her, you know, rocks, throwing sand at her. At one point rips her hearing aids out, which causes her to bleed. And throughout all of this, you see this girl like still trying to make friends with these people. Be accepted.
Right? Yeah, to be accepted, like even apologizing, right? And I mean, for me, I don't know, that intro was a little bit hard. Like, how did you kind of like take that going into, you know, and there's a whole level of symbolism behind it, which I want to get into as well, but just on the surface level, how did you,
it was really sad. It was really sad. But it was interesting because this is like a whole different perspective of a film, where normally the story would be told from her eyes, because this person was bullied and all this stuff. So to see a story told from the aggressor's viewpoint, and that the aggressor is in pain and feeling miserable about himself and wanting to not be there, is really interesting. And that's not a story I feel like is told very often. But I think it's also an important story. And it's also like, there's a lot of beautiful lessons in this film. One of which being like, you know, you can make mistakes, you can do horrible, horrible things, but there's always a way back. There's always a path to betterment. And, you know, I think we watched this film sort of like this character trying to take that journey.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I do think that it was a good move on the director's side to kind of like start it off with him older and him kind of like, I guess, obviously feeling remorse because he's at that point of, I guess at that level of despair, right? So you kick it off feeling for the character, and that way when you do see this, I think if we didn't have that, you would kind of like look at this kid like, oh, he's a complete like douchebag, which he was, but bearing that in mind, you know, something happens in his life to change him, or to at least change, you know, his feelings or what have you, right? But going to the girl, and her name is Shoko, going to her, right? Like, and this is why I kind of like looking into the psychology behind this, right? Because, you know, she's new at a school, and honestly, there's a whole level of how kind of like the system and the adults around them have failed her. I mean, the teacher in the class, right? He was so like, all this stuff was going on under his eye, and he did nothing about it. He did nothing. And the moment when things kind of like got out of control, you know, he shouted out the student, you know, the main character, Shoya. But where was he the months leading up to that? You know, and it showed this level of apathy that the adults around had, that kind of like left the children up to their own devices. And this girl, right? One thing that stood out to me is because she kept apologizing for things. She kept apologizing. People would do things bad to her and she would apologize. And looking at that, it kind of, I was watching something and they brought out a good point about sometimes people could do that because if you're apologizing and that kind of like puts the blame or the fault on you, which could then in turn mean that if you're the cause, then maybe you can also be a solution. So sometimes it can be a level of trying to be able to control a situation, in a situation where you may feel like there is no control. Losing her hearing, obviously she had no control over that. So, you know, like, I think that was kind of like her holding on to hope that, you know, maybe if she did this, then the kids would accept her. Maybe if she did this, then the kids would accept her. Maybe if she did this, right? And in this type of situation, the sad part was like, no, like these kids weren't, I mean, they were cruel, right? So there wasn't going to be a level of kind of like her being able to fix this on her own. And I think that was another thing that kind of like for the other kids made them resent her even more, because she didn't lash out and she didn't, like, you know, she was kind of revealing their faults, right? As bad as they were to her, she was returning it with kindness. You know, and I think internally that probably even made them feel like worse people.
Yeah, made them more angry.
Yeah. You know, so this went on for some time, and another part before getting to the point where the turnaround happened, there was a part where, like I said, they were taking her hearing aids out, and they were like throwing them out windows and stuff like that. I think they said like 8 hearing aids she had lost, right, due to Shoya. And eventually, obviously, the parents got involved. And Shoko's mom, the deaf girl, her mom, has a conversation with Shoya's mom, and they go off to the side, and Shoya's mom comes back, and you see that her ear is bleeding, and she's like, I hope you'll be a good boy from now on. Right? So like his mom kind of like took the brunt of, you know, what he was doing to this girl. And I think that was a start in his realization, but I think the biggest one happened when things completely turned around, and like the class kind of like because someone had to get in trouble for all of this, right? And the class pretty much turned on him and was like, you know, he's the culprit, he's the one that's been bullying him. And it turned around where he started being bullied. And the kids that he was hanging out with, that was his friends, they started bullying him, even throwing him in the same water that that Shoko ended up, you know, in, because he threw her book in there. And I think that was when he started empathizing with her.
Right.
I don't know, like, what were you feeling at that point? Like, I guess with his initial turnaround, and maybe even going into, I guess, his change as a person.
No, I think he was learning the lesson that he needed to learn, and sort of, you know, it's the tale that is as old as time is karma. Like,
yeah,
it comes back. And, you know, you made a really fantastic point about the way that the film was started at the beginning. Had that scene not happened, where he was sort of making ending decisions, I would have viewed everything super differently. And that is once again sort of like proof to us as humans, how we can be hyper judgmental and hypercritical and harsh. But because it showed that scene, you already have this place in your heart for him of like, he's hurt, he's wounded, he needs care, he needs love, like what happened? And so, you know, had I not seen that scene, when everybody turns on him, normally I'd be like, good, that's what he deserves, like he had this coming. But no, you're like,
in the back of your mind, you know where that leads.
Right, you know where it leads, and so you feel his pain. I think most humans can relate that none of us are perfect. And at one point or another, we've been too harsh or unkind to somebody. And hopefully most of us have self-reflected. And, you know, you feel the guilt and the pain from that. But to the extreme that it took him, it's hard. It's hard to watch. It's very painful. And so when all the bullying turned to him, I felt bad for him. I felt bad for her, and I felt bad for him. And I just, I don't like to see people like that. It's not a good feeling. And I feel like anybody and everybody can kind of relate. Either you've been on one spectrum or the other of these two situations, or you've experienced both. And I think many of us have experienced both in life, and it's hard.
Yeah. I did want to add too, like, so after that had happened, you know, because Shoko was still there, you know, the girl was still there, and she was trying to help him through it, right? Like, there's a scene in the movie where he writes some nasty things about her on a chalkboard, and then she walks into the classroom, and then when she sees it, he tries to pretend like, oh, you know, I don't know who did this, let me clean it up for you, but he was the one that did it, right? And then she thanks him, and then he gets mad because, like, the whole point was that to make her feel humiliated. Now, fast forward, he's getting bullied, and, you know, he sees her scrubbing his desk. And, you know, he's like, you know, what are you doing and stuff like that. You find out the reason why she's scrubbing it is because she's trying to return that same supposed act of kindness that, you know, he lied and said that he was doing, but she was actually doing it. So he didn't have to see the words that people were writing on his desk. But when that happens, they actually get into a fight, and like a physical fight. And
yeah, they brawled.
Yeah. But you know what? And this actually, because I did want to touch on this, the music of this film. The score was phenomenal, but there's this one, repeating piano theme, and it sounds like it. The best way to describe it is it sounds like a struggle is happening. Like, it's very basic. It's not like this huge, intricate piano thing. It's like a very, like, almost kind of like kid-like thing where you feel like maybe a toddler's learning how to walk or something like that. Like, that's how it sounds on piano. But the imagery that you're getting from this movie is people trying to connect in a very, like, I guess, infantile way, right? Because they don't know how to do it, right? But, it's almost like a toddler taking his first steps and trying to connect with people and maybe falling along the way. And even this fight is funny because it's a fight, but it's probably the first level that they actually emotionally connected and let out what they were really feeling. I know Shoko, she let out what she was really feeling. And I just thought it was powerful. I thought it was powerful. And the music did an amazing job in lending to that as far as with the feeling. But she ends up moving, I don't want to say moving away, but like, I guess going to a different school, and he, grows up a little bit. And I think it feels like high school.
Well, she had to transfer schools.
She had to transfer because, she transferred due to the bullying. And he, is in high school, but he's getting bullied, right? It continues. But another thing that he does, right? And this is probably also delving into his psyche, right? He bullied her because he lacked the ability to connect and understand people. When she walked in, he was like, and one of the other girls was like, "Oh, there's a girl in the classroom." He was like, "So what? I don't care," right? He was never connecting with people where he felt anything. And here's why I say, even when he changed, he didn't really change. And this is what I mean by that. When he went into high school and he was the one being bullied, that aspect of connecting with people, it actually only got worse. He X'd out every face that he saw. He refused to look anyone in the eye. He purposely isolated himself from any type of friendship, which is, it kind of delved deeper into his aspect of not caring about people or not, connecting with people. So even though he was remorseful, I think one of the biggest parts that kind of like lacked in his character was still there, probably even on overdrive. But just on the opposite thing as far as with his guilt. Then he tries to connect with her again. What did you think about that? When he tried to, because he does have a calendar outlined for series events, and one of the things that he wanted to do was to reach out to her, maybe to apologize or things like that. What do you kind of like think of that, I guess, from that angle?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, you can tell that this is something that like he realized he really needed to repair and like needed to confront the guilt so that he could move on and not just be so like it was affecting him like immensely, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think he also wanted to have her feel better. I found what was interesting is I felt like he still struggled to connect. Like he wanted to connect to her, but he just, I don't know if it's walls, I don't know what the right wording is, but that he's just still couldn't get there. And so that's where I'm like, is this sincere? Is this insecurity? Is this fear? Like what is going on that is holding you back from genuinely trying to connect with this person.
Well, even her little sister checked him, remember? Because when he first tried to do it, her little sister came up, who didn't, disclose that she was her little sister at the time. But she was like, are you doing this just for you? Are you doing this just so you could feel better? Right? Because if you are, she doesn't need it. And it's crazy because, yes, I do feel like he felt bad about it because he was on the receiving end right afterward of what that feels like. So of course he felt bad about what he did. But I do think 100% a large portion of him going to visit her was for his own peace. Right? Yeah. And I think that is it right too, as far as with genuinely connecting with her. And I think a large part of that had to do with him learning how to reconnect with people again, reconnect with the world. And it was a slow thing, right? Like I said, a lot of
very slow.
But a lot of people,
that's one thing. It was a very slow process.
Yeah. But a lot of the people that he was running into, they had, these X's on their face because, he refused to look people in the eye and he didn't want to connect with them. And, one of the first people that X dropped for was, it was this kid that he saw his bike was getting stolen. Right. And he was trying to fight off this guy from stealing his bike. And he runs over to them and he's like, instead of fighting the guy, he's like, look, if you want, you could borrow my bike. Knowing that he would never see his bike again and his bike would be stolen. But, I felt that his first kind of redeeming thing, I like that it was a sacrifice. Right. It wasn't him. Too. Yeah, it wasn't him being violent. It was like him actually sacrificing.
I just want peace.
Yeah. And I think that was a good step because it was the opposite of the selfishness that he had before. Right. So, he connects with this kid. They end up being friends. And through that, he's finally able to, connect with Shoko. And kind of start having a friendship. And he learned sign at the time, right? He was able to sign with her, which I thought was, was nice. But as that happens, things start coming back. And it's funny because all the other kids that were bullying, right? Naoka, which is a whole other, that girl is a whole other can of worms.
I cannot with that one.
There is a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack there. But Miki, another one, that was a girl with glasses that was kind of like the role model student, which kind of she wasn't at the forefront of bullying, but she was complacent. Yeah. Complicit. Sorry. Complicit. But and that says something too, right? As far as just, because she kind of painted herself like she was this role model, right? But all of this comes to a head. All of these people kind of come back into each other's life. And now Shoya has to deal with this change that he's making and being confronted with his past to this degree, right? And Naoka is horrible. She kind of wants to go right back to bullying this girl. The first time she sees Shoko, she's like, oh, let's go toss her hearing aids. And he's like, yo, what are you talking about right now? What is wrong with you?
There's so much irony with her character too, because she was one of the first people to actually show her kindness.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I think I think there's a level of kind of and it would have been interesting to see a little bit more on her background, because I feel like there's a level of something she's probably internally going through that makes her that way and that cold, and the way that she and the way that she handles things, right? She's but obviously, we didn't see that. We kind of just saw the reaction, The thing that blew my mind was, there was this one scene where she was being mean to Shoko, and Shoko's Shoko's mom doesn't play, right? She already had Shoya's mom, ear bleeding and stuff like that. So she walks up to Nyoka and slaps her. And Nyoka fights her back. And I'm like, yo, is she really fighting her, like fighting this girl's mom right now, like in the middle of the street? But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But going back to Shoya and Shoko, right? So he's desperately trying to have this friendship with her. And Shoko is obviously very like into him. She even tells him that she likes him, but it doesn't reach him, right? Like because of the barrier.
Well, are you talking about that part or when she says the other L word? Because I have a huge problem with that in this film.
So I don't know. I think it was hard to understand what she was saying, but I think because later when she's texting her sister, she says that I tried to tell him that I like him. So I don't know if she actually did say love. Maybe it sounded like love because, her speech isn't as clear. But I think we're talking about the same thing. I think
I had subtitles on still,
and it said love?
Happening. It says love.
Oh, okay. So yeah, maybe she did say love. So what was your problem with it? What was your problem with it?
It's more at the ending because it's a reciprocation thing. Like, it's he clearly felt it and didn't ever get it out. And so I have an issue with anime endings. They've all been subpar so far. And
I think it doesn't have the resolution that you're hoping for, and a lot of things.
I need the resolution so bad.
A lot of things leave things open for you to kind of like you can craft your own ending how you want it to end.
I don't like
that. But you want to set in stone. You're like, all right, they're together, they get married, they have kids, boom, that's it. I get it. But okay, all right, so she's trying to let him know how she feels. It kind of it doesn't hit me, and it's not that I feel like if he knew, he would be interested. I think it's just one of those like just guys being oblivious things.
Did we ever get the answer on the little 3 stick thingies? I feel like that was also left.
I think that means that there was a sign that she liked him. I mean, I know that it's for gardening. Because he thought it was candy at first. How are sticks with animals on top for gardening? That made no sense to me at all. I don't know. Maybe you should buy sticks with animals on top for your garden. It might spruce it up a bit. But yeah. So she makes the effort. It kind of like doesn't reach him, and they're still connecting, and it kind of like boils up to this big point where they're at this fireworks festival, and they're there enjoying the fireworks together, and she heads in, and he's like, she's like, oh, I gotta go. I think she says maybe study or something, I don't know, but she says she's gotta go, and he's like, okay. First thing that stood out to me is there was this sign that they were doing like this, like the peace sign, but it meant like see you later, right? It meant like see you later. And he does that to her, and she looks at him, and she does a different sign, right? And it was the first time that I saw that sign in the movie. Like normally they would just like do the see you later sign, and I was like, huh, okay. Then her little sister asked, well, where'd she go? She's like, oh, she went home real quick. And then she's like, oh, well, can you get my camera? So he's like, okay, yeah. So he goes back to the house to get the camera. And when he's in the house, he sees Shoko on the balcony looking at the fireworks. And the curtain is like going back and forth. So you're seeing like the curtain, then you see her, then you see the curtain, then you see her. And then, the curtain pulls back and you see her now standing on top of the ledge. And he's like, oh, snap. Damn, I'm skipping a lot. Okay, we're going to jump back to this. I need to explain his own situation.
You're going to cliffhang like that? That's crazy.
We're going to go back to it. Because the one thing that kind of like makes that, I guess, hit more is because he had been there, right? So going back to the beginning of the movie, right, it starts off with him on the side of a bridge, and he does these things, right? He has his calendar that kind of is cut off. He gives his mom this money and stuff like that, saying, you know, I'm paying you back, probably for the hearing aids. And he had plans to, you know, to end his life, or just to, you know, self-delete. And he didn't do it. His mom finds out that that was the plan. You know, she's like, I don't want the money. She ends up burning the money. But anyway, he got to that point, right? Due to how he was feeling. So now, full circle, he comes around and he sees her about to, you know, make that same decision. So he kind of like, you know, he jumps to her, he tries to get to her, he falls, he's screaming her name. Of course, she can't hear him because she's deaf, right? So now it's like this scene of him doing everything that he can to try and get her attention and get to her before it's too late. And, you know, he does. He gets to her. He saves her. But in the process, he ends up falling off the balcony. And, you know, he ends up, you know, falling, and like it's in water, but he ends up hospitalized in like critical condition. And
coma.
Yeah, in a coma. And you know, the school, I don't know what it is that they tell the school, if he's the, you know, if the story that they tell is that he's the one that tries to do it, because when he comes back, everyone is very like sensitive around him. Like, did you get that feeling? Like in a concerned way. I mean, it could have been just because, like, obviously he was in a coma, so that there's a level of concern.
Yeah, I don't know that I didn't really pick up on that a lot.
Okay. I think I felt that from his friend when his friend confronted him, right? And then, you know, he was crying and stuff. And
yeah, but then the girl, she goes and like beats the heck out of Shoko.
Naoko?
Like blaming her for him almost dying.
Yeah, and then fights her mom too in the process.
Oh man.
Yeah. But he comes back to school, and I think he's even more guarded. There's more X's that come up, and there's this scene, and this to me is probably like one of the most powerful scenes in the movie, where once again, and this kind of like boils down to the nature of how they've been dealing with stuff. Shoko, right, the girl, she's crying on a bridge. That's another thing. A lot of these connections happen on a bridge, right? Which bridge is being connecting one point to another. But a lot of these scenes happen on a bridge. And she's crying, and Shoya comes to her. He finds her there, and they're talking. And she has this... He asked her pretty much why was she, going to do what she was going to do. And she felt that, she was a burden. She was holding, him back from his growth or his transition. And she felt that, things would be better if she wasn't there. Once again, placing fault and blame on herself, right? Like what Shoya was going through in his turmoil, his inner turmoil and stuff like that was a result of his decisions and dealing with that and dealing with the effects of it. And, he turns around, he's like, no, like, you've been a help, right? Like I've been, hating myself, right? And having this hatred for myself. And that's why, I felt the way that I've been feeling, and he asked her to teach him how to live. And now you have these two characters that are now kind of like drawing strength from one another, and in both, birth in their own turmoil, but kind of like helping each other. Once again, the remedy being, as far as what their struggle being, connection. Mm-hmm. Right? For both of them, I would say isolation was the thing that kind of like the thing that hurt them the most. And having that desire or that ability to be able to connect with other people that genuinely care is one of the turning points for both of them in having a happy life. I don't know. What do you think?
I think you're spot on. The other thing that I thought was really powerful is when he goes to save her, he's literally like grabs her by her arm as she's falling and is, holding her and struggling to get her back to safety. And you don't know like what's going to happen. And he's basically like praying and making these promises of like, I'm going to open up. I'm going to fix things. I'm going to connect with people. Like, it's all these walls that he had up and knew about himself in place, and all this growth he still needed to do, and all this healing and mending. And that was his like, just save her, and I promise I'll do these things. I thought that was really interesting as well.
True. Can I be a bit personal in this?
Sure.
Okay. So, for me, I've always said, for me, music has been a layer of like connecting with my own feelings, right? Like being honest and open with what I'm feeling, but also with others, right? And I know, like, for me, having someone there that you can kind of like connect to or turn to, or just have some type of feeling towards that it, in my sense, it inspires creation, right? It inspires me to create, inspires, me to have that creative energy. And that is something that I guess in a sense I could say gives me strength, right? Like, I don't know, does that resonate with you too, as far as with, because I mean you do a lot of connecting with people, like you're just naturally a person that is, a very social person and connecting with others.
It's funny that you say that, because I don't view myself that way at all. Okay. I view myself as actually very antisocial, but human connection and very genuine, organic connection is very impactful for me. Mm-hmm. And that's where people think that I am social, is because when I'm in those elements where I can connect, my sort of best versions of myself come out. My happiness, my love for life. When I can find an element where I can, sorry, I'm so emotional.
It's fine.
Where I can connect with people in the right way. It is very natural, but I related to him with the X's, because just in general, day to day, I feel like I'm kind of like that person where everybody I encounter has like the X on their face. And I prefer things that way. I like that. I like my cocoon and my bubble, because I feel safe there. And it's something that I've had to learn over the last few years of, meeting people and going to these things and getting more and more comfortable and building more friendships and stronger bonds. But, it's always been a gift of mine to read people and understand people. And I'm getting better at connecting isn't the right word, but just instead of like normally what I did as a person is I was a wallflower. I had all these gifts, but I just stayed on the outside. And now in this sort of transition phase that I've been in the last few years of putting I dropped my mic, I'm sorry. Putting myself out there and jumping in and being part of the conversation has been really beautiful, like tremendous growth, and I'm proud of myself for that. But that's something I would not have done my entire life. That's just a more recent development.
But I mean, that's a good thing, you would say, right? Like, I think, you know, through that, you've shown a tremendous level of strength as far as, you know, with your growth and what you've been doing and what you've been able to do. And even the friendships, right, that you've acquired during this time. I would say for me, you've been an amazing friend. And I hope that I'm one of the people that you connect with that you don't have an ex over.
You pass.
Hey, there we go. But yes, I think, you know, it is very important. I think that with this movie, that was one of the biggest messages, because at the end, that to me, that you said as far as the ending resolution, right? As far as whether they end up together, that would be nice, right? That would be nice. But to me, like, the ending resolution to that was him being able to connect with people again, right?
And being happy.
Yeah, and being happy, right? And you
saw everybody. The other thing, so I'm so sorry to interrupt.
No,
the
go
other
ahead.
thing is when the exes are there, it's like everybody's faces were like sad or like just not pleasant expressions. And as soon as the exes were gone, you saw rosy cheeks and smiles and all these different like nice emotions on their faces. And it's like, kind of was like, oh my God, I had this guard up all this time in fear, and like, what did I have to fear? Like, it's nothing but like welcomeness and beauty and happiness around me that I've been blocking from myself.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so it's, you know, it ends, you know, once again, all the X's dropping. And, you know, he could see everyone. He's looking people in the eye and stuff. And I'd say that was a level of kind of like, you know, awareness or attention to people that he didn't have even before, right? Before the exes arrived, because he didn't care about people. He was apathetic. Probably a product of the society, because that's how the adults were. That's how his teacher was. That's, you know, we saw that. So, you know, that was pretty much how the movie resolved. Whether they end up together or not, I don't know. You know, it doesn't shed into light. I know, Magic, you're upset about that. But, I mean, you know what? You can put them, you can ship them. You can ship them together if you want. or he can end up with Nyoka. She did stay by his bedside. No, not Nyoka.
No.
Stay away from that girl.
Also, like, you know, there's like, and I get it, like, it's real, right? Like, there's no resolution with her. You don't know, like, what happened to her. Is she okay? Is she happy? Is she a miserable human being? But that's life. So I think that was fair, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we'll get to the reviews. Another thing that I thought was interesting, though, too, is that this was because it was a lot of things to dive into, even artistically, this movie took a lot of different abstract approaches, and I like showing you things like this, because I know you're very used to, like, you know, typically, like with the Disney format, the art for the most part stays the same, unless you're watching something that is purposeful to, like, you know, have these different art styles and stuff like that. This, you know, you had a lot of different transitions. You had these dreamlike sequences. You had it every time that there was water, there was a certain type of art style. You had, you know, all of these different things that kind of like gave this abstract appearance, whilst you had your traditional art, you know, that told the story. So I thought that was, you know, interesting for you to see too, and I did want you to see that, because that is something that is commonly done in anime, where there's certain things are embellished, but it's for an artistic reason. Now, thoughts and final review. I'm gonna have you go first on this. What were your thoughts and also your score?
I'm still struggling with anime a little bit with storytelling. And I don't know if it's a translation thing. I don't know what it is, but I still find it quite complex and not super easy to follow. I mean, granted, I got there and I understood, but it's just not, in ways I feel like I'm trying to understand a different language. And it's a bit frustrating because I want to be more deeply involved and committed to it. But it's hard when I feel like I'm still not in full understanding. Another comment of something that I find fascinating, and maybe this is my own naivety, of, in my mind, the Eastern culture is very closed off, and they live life a certain way. And to see a film like this is very, very surprising to me. And again, I might just be completely naive to what culture is actually like. But I just have in my frame of mind what it is like and the demands of a child growing up and how you're supposed to act and think and all these things, what's expected of you. So seeing a film this raw and real, I appreciated, but I was also very, very surprised about. You remember this show on Netflix that was like a super crazy success? I don't remember the full title, but the 13.
Oh yeah, dang! With the girl and she died.
Yeah,
and he was with the tapes and stuff like that. I know what you're talking about. I don't know. I forgot the name of it.
I feel like like they're very similar kind of situations that you were talking about. And what I liked about this movie is I thought it was handled in such a more thoughtful and potentially caring way. What I didn't like about that show, I was all in on that show, but man, while it was real, it was
hard.
I don't know. Yeah. I feel like some things were too much and too. Yeah, I didn't feel like it was cared for the way it should have been, and I feel like this movie was really cared for.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, so that's a positive critique of the film. So my review score, again, a 0.5er. I was gonna go in lower, but because for little things, like not liking how certain things ended and not having resolution and just like my own selfishness of wanting things to be a certain way in film, I'm going to give it the higher score out of respect for the story that was told and the different viewpoints, and that you're handling two very different types of trauma and pain. And it's done very, very well. I can't say that I loved it. I think it's a very important film and definitely obviously left a mark and was very touching. So for that reason, I'll give it an 8.
Okay. Solid score. All right. And for me, all right. This movie, so this was actually my second time watching. I watched it, around the time when it came out. It was a contender at the time with Your Name, right? They were kind of on bet. And this won a lot of awards, but obviously Your Name was a phenomenon of its time, right? And you watched Your Name. That was the first one that I recommended to you. And but this got a lot of praise. a lot of praise. So I had to watch it. I think at the time of me watching it the first time, I went in with a lot of comparisons to Your Name. And these are two different movies that stand on their own and different, levels to them. And it was cool when I watched it the first time. I was like, okay, it's fine and stuff like that. But when I watched it again for this and really zoned into it as far as just a movie and, the filmmaking and the message and how this kind of like affects me emotionally, and the music, the score, I can't get over the score. Oh my gosh. Like, this review doesn't do it justice. You have to watch this movie. You have to hear what I'm talking about. But I think that this movie was very profound. And your comparison that you made, I can't think of why I can't think of the name, but the 13
reasons.
13 reasons why. 13 reasons why, right? The comparison to that, yes, I think that this was done in a much more caring way, a much more respectful way. And you kind of like felt for everyone in this film. Mm-hmm. You felt for everyone in this film. And even probably maybe the worst person in this film, Nayoka, right? Like, the way that these characters were written, even though this happened, like, this was something off screen, I felt there was something going on with her. There was something happening that we just didn't know because that wasn't shared with us. But the way that this film, it made you connect with every single character, where you can relate, you can feel for them, and it made everyone more real, right? Because no one is one-dimensional, right? And a lot of things happen in cycles. And I think that this movie did an amazing job in that. For me, as far as a review, I think I would highly suggest checking it out. I think that this is a movie that probably everyone needs to see, because I think there could be levels in each of our lives where we do feel isolated, where we do feel like we may not want to connect. And, this movie kind of like zones in on the importance of connecting with others, right? For others and for ourselves. So my review score for this is going to be a 9. I'm going to give this a 9. Once it is, it's a serious tone movie. It's a slower pace, right? Don't expect action scenes. Don't expect any like fighting or anything like that. It is a slow burn, but a very powerful one. And if you're watching it and looking at it, with your mind and heart open, I think that it will have a very powerful effect on you. So that is our review score for A Silent Voice. Do you have anything to say before we wrap this up? Because I know I've been touching on a lot of different types of things for you, and that's purposeful, because I want you to see all the different angles and areas of anime. It's not all just screaming and fireballs.
Fireballs.
Yeah.
I think maybe the most profound and resonating thing from this film that made me really introspective, maybe to a degree I hadn't really realized before, or really just like taken note of, is being on both the giving and receiving ends of a spectrum of pain. I told Emojii when we were getting ready for this that, like, I'm kind of wanting to, when I can, trying to like relate to characters and dress accordingly and stuff. But at the same time, I said, I don't want to dress like this to make a mock of the film. Like, that's not my intent. The truth is, I do actually have a prescription. I just choose to not wear my glasses.
Which I will say, you look good in glasses.
Thank you. But I have been on both sides. I have been bullied. Some really painful things where you have deep, dark thoughts. I've also self-reflected at times on ways in which I could have handled myself better. I wouldn't say no, I have one instance where I feel like I bullied somebody, and it's a deep story, but we're all human. We all make mistakes, and there have been times where I have, as a human, not been as kind as I could have been and said harsh things or treated somebody poorly. And this movie really made me reflect on that. And it's funny because I have very, very specific memories in my mind that are triggered from time to time, and this film really triggered those. They're like, when you think of people dealing with self-harm thoughts and issues, you think of it only from the perspective of, oh, it's somebody who was bullied or is dealing with trauma from this event, that event, whatever event, people passing away, all these different traumatizing events. This is the first time I've seen it told from the aggressor perspective and dealing with the pain and guilt of being harmful to others and how that makes you feel internally and how you deal with that. So I really appreciated seeing the two different viewpoints of that, because I think most of us can relate to having been on both sides of the fence. We're not always kind to people, and we're not always given kindness. We're human. That stuff happens, and it's not fun and it's not pleasant, but it's real. And you're gonna have feelings on both sides of the coin, rightfully so. So I think that's my biggest takeaway. The thing that I appreciated the most was seeing both sides' stories being told, because I think they're both very, very important. And I think both sides of those kind of situations need empathy and understanding.
Indeed. And that takes a certain level of strength to kind of like look at oneself, because you really have to analyze and look at yourself as far as, sometimes not seeing the best sides, right? And I mean, one of the characters, Miki, that was probably her fault, right? She didn't, and that's the girl with the glasses with the class role model. She didn't see herself at fault in any way. Meanwhile, Shoya, he carried that like a cross, so to speak, where to the point where the bullying that he received, he felt he deserved, right? And the danger in that is kind of like, well, if you are that guilty and you feel like you need this perpetual torment, that can leave you in a place of hopelessness. And that was the other level that he had to climb out of, right? Like, yes, you do want to feel remorse because that triggers a change, but you also don't want to feel like you are a lost cause, right? And that's a lesson that he had to learn in that connection with people. But yeah, I mean, beautiful sentiment, Magic, and I hope you know that many people that have come to know you, we value you, and you've affected a lot of people's lives in an amazing way. So appreciate you.
You're talking to my Google right now. My
Google. There goes Google. All right. So
no, wait. I just wanted to say the same sentiment goes to you as well.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So I think we are good. I think that this wraps things up for our review. Unless you had anything else to say, we already did our scores.
No, man. I'm emotionally exhausted.
I told you this was probably going to be one of those. I told you. I didn't even have too many sticker gifts and everything like that.
It was therapeutic, but I'm tired.
I feel you. Well, you can rest and enjoy the rest of the day. But I want to give a thank you to everyone that tuned in to us. I hope that the review was meaningful. And I also hope that the review encourages you to go check out this movie because it was dope. My name is Emojii. I am here with
Magic.
And we have brought you our journey
from Toontown.
To Tokyo. Thank you for traveling with us. We'll be back at this again next Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 p.m. Pacific Time. Until then, take care of yourselves, love yourselves, and seek out connections. We could all use them. Until then, peace, take care, and we'll see ya.